Manhattan is a city built on top of itself, a dense grid of Cold War shelters, forgotten stations, and maintenance corridors. But in 2019, flood repair workers accidentally breached a section of rock that didn't appear on any municipal map, revealing a hidden passage that official records claimed didn't exist. To prevent rumors from spreading, the city quietly dispatched an engineering team led by Ryan Mercer. Their task was straightforward: enter the tunnel, verify its structural integrity, and find out where it connected before the media caught wind of the discovery. The passage stretched downward through unnaturally smooth black stone, polished like glass and cold enough to fog the team's breath instantly. The walls showed no signs of modern construction equipment, no rusted steel, and no identifying markings of any kind. As they descended, the environment shifted. The air grew significantly colder. Radios crackled with constant static, and footsteps produced strange echoes that repeated themselves long after the team had actually stopped walking. Mercer checked their depth measurements 40 minutes into the walk. According to the readings, the corridor was already plunging far below the lowest known levels of New York subway infrastructure. The team was standing in a physical corridor where every city blueprint and geological survey insisted there was only solid bedrock. They had left the recorded history of Manhattan behind. After nearly an hour underground, the narrow tunnel opened into a massive subway station. It was fully lit and perfectly maintained, stretching endlessly into the darkness of the surrounding tunnels. The architecture was a confusing merge of different historical eras. Ornate tilework and brick arches, resembling early 1900s European systems, sat adjacent to digital surveillance monitors and modern signage, as if the station had been built by multiple generations simultaneously. On the platform benches, pristine newspapers sat as if they had just been delivered. Some carried dates from the 1930s and 70s, but one issue Ryan picked up displayed tomorrow's date, with headlines describing transit shutdowns that hadn't yet occurred. The team's historian, Lucas Reed, recognized the setting from urban legends. He whispered about the lower platform, a rumored hidden transit hub where people who board the wrong train late at night are said to vanish forever. Hundreds of surveillance cameras were mounted throughout the station, ranging from antique mechanical models to modern digital systems. But instead of monitoring the platforms for security, every single lens was angled toward the tracks, watching for an arrival. At 2:14 a.m., the air pressure dropped. The overhead lights flickered and dimmed to a dull red glow, followed by a distorted automated announcement. Final transfer arriving shortly. Please remain behind the line. The announcement made it clear that despite the lack of visible staff, the station was operating on a precise, predetermined schedule. A train glided into the station in absolute silence. It moved without the screech wheels, the vibration of the tracks, or the spray of electrical sparks, typical of a New York subway line. Its windows were completely black, glowing with a soft, internal light. As the doors hissed open, the team saw the cargo. Dozens of people were standing inside the cars, frozen completely motionless and unblinking. The silence broke when every head inside the train turned simultaneously. Dozens of pairs of eyes fixed directly on the engineering team at the exact same moment. The team turned to flee, but the entry tunnel they had used only minutes before was gone. The station's layout had shifted into a maze of unfamiliar platforms, and the standard transit maps on the walls began to change as they watched. Neighborhoods and familiar routes were erased from the map entirely. The complex web of the city was replaced by a single line plunging straight down into the depths, labeled only as the final line. Figures began emerging from the shadows of the cross platforms. They wore clothes from across the century, 1940s coats, vintage hats, and modern jackets. Ryan recognized faces among them from missing person reports he had seen on the news years earlier. As the team sprinted toward a service elevator, the figures began to move in unnatural, lagging bursts of speed. The station workers and passengers followed silently, closing the distance as the train horns echoed through the tunnels. With the corridors shifting to block their retreat, and the figures closing in, the team realized the station was no longer just a location they were surveying. It was a trap designed to integrate them into its silent ridership. The elevator eventually opened into the maintenance corridor near Lower Manhattan. The team emerged back into the surface world, where the normal traffic and morning commuters made the ordeal below feel like a fever dream. But the physical evidence was undeniable. To the team, the descent had lasted 6 hours. On the surface, 4 days had passed. The city sealed the tunnel immediately, citing structural instability. No official report mentioned the station, and Lucas Reed, who had been separated from the group during the pursuit, never exited the subway system. He remains officially missing. Months later, Ryan Mercer received a plain envelope with no return address. Inside was a black paper ticket, stamped across the front, "Transfer below, valid next arrival." Ryan never spoke of the mission again, but the stories persist among veteran transit workers. They speak of dark trains that appear on no schedule and platforms that exist only for those who stay too late. Somewhere beneath the streets of Manhattan, the schedule is still running. The lower platform is still active, waiting in the silence for its next arrival.